Shardul is a police officer and a bodybuilding enthusiast. He is a fairly strict police officer and superior officer to Nazanin. But in the office, they are not acting like lovers. That is when he gets a call from his family saying that they are okay with the marriage between him and Nazanin. This makes him very uncomfortable, and he says a lie that Nazanin is getting married soon because they were late to make a decision and in turn ruined his life. But we come to know that in reality, he has no feelings for Nazanin, and she is already married. Somewhere else, Sumi is browsing her dating app and a girl named Raju is constantly asking her to meet somewhere, giving us the vibe that Sumi might be a lesbian. Sumi is a 31-year-old physical education instructor at an institute. Her family is trying to find a man for her and get her married, but she acts uninterested and gets into fights with her mom, frequently over this. She had agreed to marry a man earlier, but he died 2 weeks before the marriage, so people are also thinking that she is cursed, as most people in India believe in absurd supernatural things. The next day, she is waiting at a cafe to meet Raju, but instead a boy shows up. He was the one who chatted with her pretending to be a girl. Sumi gets very upset and leaves the place, but he follows her asking questions and even stalks her asking her to sleep with him once. He threatens to expose her as a lesbian in society if she doesn't. So she decides to file a case against him with Shardul. Shardul takes care of Raju and starts acting weird around Sumi. He goes to the places that she visits and kind of stalks her. When she confronts him, he asks her to come with him for some minutes, just to talk about a private matter. So they are sitting in a park, and when she asks what is the matter, he said that they should get married. But when she says she doesn't want to and that she is cursed, he says that he knows that she is homosexual and uses this as an excuse to get away from marriage. Then he very uncomfortably reveals that he is homosexual too, and if they got married their families would be happy and they could just live together, just like roommates. She agrees to this. The problem with both of them is that they act like heterosexuals in society, as they don't want people to find out who they are. They'd either crave acceptance by society or are scared of the judgments and consequences that might come with their sexual orientation. So they are married now and on their honeymoon. That is when Kabir, Shardul's boyfriend who is doing MBA, joins them, and the three of them have a very good time with Sumi, being left out often. They are back from honeymoon, and they decide to live as roommates as per their agreement. Shardul proposes splitting all the bills in half as well. The next day, as Sumi is about to go to her school, her father asks her to give his stool in the lab for testing. In the lab, she meets Rimjim. They make fun of her for bringing a box full of stool and ask her to take a small bottle full of it for testing. On her way out of the lab, they look at each other in a romantic way, suggesting there might be something happening. The next day, she goes there again in the name of getting her blood tested. But Rimjim senses the situation and tells her that they can also go for a coffee if she doesn't want a test. They have coffee and connect well over it. They discuss their life as lesbians in Indian society and how hard it is for them to come out. Rimjim had already came out as a lesbian in her family, and they have stopped talking to her. The next day, Shardul gets news that he will get an apartment in the police colony from his superior. He thinks of it as not so great news, as it would be difficult to hide their marriage agreement in a crowded and risky police colony. The next day, his superior visits them. Shardul acts like a superior man out of his character and orders her to make tea. She didn't respond to this, and when he calls her to a side to ask her, she says she is not his servant and deserves to be respected, and they reach an agreement. Seeing all this, his superior officer tells him that he is doing the right thing by controlling his wife. But his wife tells her to not bow her head like that and take charge of him. Days go by like this, and Rimjim and Suma have had many romantic dates, and one day they go to Sumi's place. When Shardul wakes up, he is confused to see Rimjim there and asks Sumi to not bring her relationships there. She doesn't listen and decides to live together there with Rimjim. They introduce her as Sumi's cousin in front of people, and in front of Sumi's family, she will be Shardul's cousin. One day, Rimjim and Sumi are sitting in their room and talking about previous relationships. That is when Sumi reveals her first love, Kamal, and when she grew up she married a guy and had a kid. She loved the kid so much and was the world to her. But then Komal's husband decides to move out and take his family with them, and Sumi was left heartbroken. That is when she also realized she wants to have a child. So she decides to marry a man like Komal. But things took a turn when that man died weeks before their marriage. She cries so hard and Rimjim has to console her. As weeks go by, Rimjim is not so comfortable with their arrangement as they are acting like couples and doing all of the stuff they do in front of people. So she confronts her and says that she lacks the courage to act the way she wants. They get into a fight over this. They are having this back and forth for some time. Meanwhile, Shardul is with Kabir, and he senses that Kabir is trying to avoid him. When he asks him to show him his phone, he doesn't agree to this, and Shardul slaps him in an attempt to get his phone and apologizes for his behavior. But Kabir walks out of the room and leaves him forever. Later that day, he comes to his apartment drunk and discusses this issue with Sumi, and tells her the story of how he also was like Kabir when he was young and had a relationship with his gym instructor. He got bored eventually and started avoiding him. Now karma has played its part, and he is in the position of his gym instructor. A couple of weeks later, the married couple is going to his place for celebrating a festival, where his family members are constantly asking the couple, especially the girl, about their plans to have children. Sumi gets very uncomfortable with his relatives. To get this off his chest, he says to his brother-in-law very confidentially that Sumi can't have babies. But he spreads the news to his family, and they tell her some lies to take her to a hospital and get all checks necessary. But all the results look good and Sumi is fine to get pregnant. That is when his family gets suspicious of the couple, as they feel like both are hiding something. Throughout the festival period, they were not interested in sleeping together in a room, and there was no sexual tension between the two. So the family decides to investigate this and asks Shardul's mom, Mrs. Thakur, to go stay with them after the festival for some days to see what is happening. Mrs. Thakur doesn't care about any of this but gets pressure from her family to do it, and so she agrees. So when they were about to go back, they were shocked to see that his mother is also joining them. The huge problem was that Rimshim is in their house and they can't go there with his mom. They tried to contact her, but she was unavailable on phone. Shardul was a bit clumsy in handling the situation that when he took Sumi's phone to contact her, he accidentally dropped it from a moving train. So right now, they don't have a way to contact her as he doesn't have her number as well. When the train was about to reach, he gets the idea to call his colleague Nazneen and tells her to go to Rimshim and ask her to move out. She does just as they ask. Meanwhile, Shardul tries to get the maximum time possible by taking his taxi through the wrong routes. And finally, when Nazneen calls that she is out of the house, he tells her to go back to the station, and then they drive straight to the police colony. But Rimshim came back to the house in search of her wallet. Little did they know that when Shardul entered the house, he finds her there. He panics and takes her mom to different rooms in an attempt to give Rimshim time. But it failed as his mother came to the right room, looking at the name next to it. When she saw Rimshim, they tell her that she is DSP's daughter and came there to give us the lock of the apartment. Then she leaves. In their house, his mother tries everything that her family tells her in order to make them sleep together and have sex. Things like watching TV all night so that Shardul can't sleep on the couch and asking Sumi to wear revealing clothes for her husband. Sumi tries to play along with her and later says that she is not having any problem, but her son is having a less sperm count, preventing them from having a baby. When Shardul reaches home, he is unaware of this and his mother starts crying. He confronts Sumi and she says everything will be fine this time as they will go to Rimshim's lab to get tested and she will manipulate the results. But being a police officer, he doesn't like this, but she convinces him. More than that, he didn't like people thinking that he is impotent. They get the test results and everyone is sad and consoles him. They also approved getting a baby through adoption, so they fill up an application. Meanwhile, Shardul meets a man named Guru and starts a relationship with him. After some weeks, his mother leaves them to go back to her family, but she misses the train. So they go back, deciding to book tickets for the train to some other day. She enters the house first before him as he was interrupted by Guru pretending to be a friend of his in front of his mom. After that, when he entered the house, he sees his mother shocked by what she has just witnessed as Sumi comes out of her room trying to cover herself in a gown. His mother walked in on them while they were having sex, and now everyone knows that she is a lesbian. Her family takes her away and Shardul asks her not to expose him in front of them. She agrees. There is a lot of emotional drama in her house, especially from her mother, and her brother calls her a pervert. Her mother also says that she would be better off dead than alive. Sumi is heartbroken and asks her dad, who always supported her, to support her or at least scold her. But he just cries without saying anything. Shardul is also getting confronted by his family members and they all ask why didn't he see this coming after spending so much time with her. So hearing all this, he gets angry and he comes out in front of his whole family. Everyone is shocked to know that he is gay, but only his mother cared about how his son lived his life hiding this truth all these years. They share a very emotional moment together after he informs Sumi that he also revealed everything. So they decides to get divorced, but then they came to know that their adoption application had been approved. So they call off divorce, since in India, gay or lesbian couples are not allowed to adopt children. Not everyone in their families is happy about this, but Sumi and Shardul are past all these to care for whether they have their support or not. They adopt a baby with all of those who support them in their families. And that is the story of Sumi and Shardul. If you like this video, here is another video that you should watch.